Sometimes when people first encounter the kind of detailed analysis we do in linguistics, it can seem strange to them. So I wanted to talk to you about why it is worthwhile to notice and analyze little details in interaction. Let's begin with how people normally do not notice details, just to bring this to your attention. So, in just everyday conversation, there is a huge amount of information coming at you very quickly. You could think of it as trying to drink from this waterfall. And what I mean is that in understanding what somebody's saying to you, you pick out the sounds, you segment the stream of sound into syllables and words and larger structures, figure out how it all goes together. You bring to mind information from previous conversations you've had with this person. You're noticing their constantly changing facial expression and their gestures and what's happening with eye contact. You filter out ambient noise, all of that. Still, it may seem to you that, I'm not sure if I believe that. It doesn't feel as though it takes that much effort to process ordinary conversation. If you're feeling that way, the reason is that we do this by means of automatic processing. Think of it as sort of like having this army of squirrels that's taking all this information, measuring things and counting things and coming up with statistical analysis of what's likely to be going on. And your army of squirrels reports to you a final conclusion about the other person's likely message and disposition towards you. Something like, "Boss, we have a conclusion. This person wants to borrow your pen and they are being nice about it." And when that happens, then you need to be aware only of that final conclusion unless something seems to be confusing or going wrong. So this is what we usually do, and most of the time it works fine. We don't massively misunderstand other people's messages or intentions. But as students of linguistics, you're kind of in the role of practicing to be language researchers, or for anyone in cross-cultural situations, it's really helpful to be able to notice the details of how someone is speaking, because that gives you the option to evaluate whether your initial impression of the person's message and intention were accurate. If you encounter this person saying, "I know, right?" Maybe your initial impression is, well, she's uncertain or anxious or confused, or you might have all kinds of initial impressions. And it's helpful to be able to notice, well, how much eye contact are we getting here? Is there rising intonation and other little details like that? And evaluate, given her cultural context, do they mean the same thing as I initially thought they did? So it's helpful to be able to do that. Let me give you an example of the kind of detail linguists sometimes want to capture. This is from a conversation that somebody did a fairly precise transcript of. So uppercase in this case is being used to indicate emphasis. The word well is said more loudly and with higher pitch. Here's a case where we indicate there's a tiny short pause there. That's the parentheses. We might indicate with brackets the point where one person is speaking and the other person starts speaking at the same time. Or we can indicate where there's noticeable intonation, falling intonation on the word right. So it's right, falling intonation. And depending on what we want to do with our analysis of this conversation, looking at details like this on a page can be very helpful.